You know that feeling when you scroll through a sea of laptops that promise studio-grade performance and cinematic displays, only to get a machine that chokes on a single 4K render or looks washed out on a coffee shop table? I've been there, and it's the exact reason I'm doing this deep dive today. If you've ever bought a high-end laptop based on glossy marketing shots and then spent a week wrestling with thermal throttling or a dim screen, you'll want to hear this. Link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon. The Dell Precision 7750 is marketed as a mobile workstation that should double as a serious gaming rig, and that dual promise is what makes the buying decision tricky. On the one hand, you have a 17.3-inch UHD panel that claims 500 nits of brightness and 100% Adobe RGB coverage that sounds perfect for color-critical work like video editing, 3D modeling, or any workflow that relies on accurate hues. On the other hand, you've got an NVIDIA Quadro RTX 4000, a card that's built for professional CAD and render pipelines but isn't exactly the same beast you'd find in a dedicated gaming laptop with an RTX 3080. The question becomes, does this combination actually deliver the day-to-day experience you expect, or do you end up with a compromise that feels like you bought two half-finished products? I started by looking at how the workstation handles the two primary scenarios most buyers care about: heavy creative workloads and extended gaming sessions. For the creative side, I took the 7750 into a small home studio, connected it to a calibrated monitor for reference, and ran a series of Photoshop actions, DaVinci Resolve color grades, and a 4K Premiere Pro export. The 17.3-inch screen, thanks to its wide view-angle anti-glare coating, stayed legible even at a bright desk lamp, and the 500 nit brightness let me see the full dynamic range without cranking the backlight to 100%. When I switched to the Quadro RTX 4000 for those GPU-accelerated effects, the render times were comparable to a desktop with a mid-range RTX 3070, which surprised me because I expected a professional card to lag behind a consumer counterpart in gaming-oriented benchmarks. In practice, the Quadro's drivers actually optimized the media encoders, so my 4K export finished in about 8 minutes, well within the range I'd consider fast for a mobile system. But the real test came when I tried to game on it. I installed a few titles that are known for pushing hardware: Cyberpunk 2077, Red Dead Redemption 2, and Shadow of the Tomb Raider, and set the resolution to native 3840x2160. The RTX 4000 held its own at medium settings, delivering playable frame rates around 4550 frames per second on the first two games, and a solid 55 frames per second on Shadow of the Tomb Raider. That's respectable for a workstation GPU, but it's also a reminder that you won't be maxing out ultra settings at 4K without compromising. If you expect a no-settings-changed gaming experience at 4K, the 7750 will make you lower texture quality or drop down to 60 Hz to stay smooth. That's a hidden trade-off many buyers miss when they focus on the raw specs instead of the practical outcome. Thermals are another point where theory meets reality. The 7750's chassis is sizable, it's a 17-inch laptop, after all, and Dell packed the Core i7-10875H with a 5.1 GHz turbo boost into it. Under a sustained load, the CPU hovered around 4.5 GHz while the fans spun up aggressively, producing a noticeable whine that could be a distraction in a quiet office. However, the cooling system did keep the laptop from throttling, even during those long Premiere exports that kept all cores busy for over half an hour. In a real-world office where you might have occasional background music, the fan noise is tolerable, but if you plan to edit in a silent studio, you'll want a separate external cooling pad. Now, let's talk storage and memory. The 512GB PCIe NVMe SSD feels fast the moment you boot into Windows 10 Pro, and loading large project files takes seconds rather than minutes. The downside is that 512GB can fill up quickly once you start dealing with 4K footage, multiple project archives, and a few games. You'll almost certainly need an external SSD or a secondary internal drive to keep things comfortable. The 32GB of DDR4 RAM, split into two 16GB sticks, gives you plenty of headroom for multitasking. I could run Photoshop, After Effects, and a virtual machine simultaneously without a hitch, which is a genuine strength for professionals who switch contexts throughout the day. So, who should actually click Add to Cart on the Precision 7750? If you are a freelance visual effects artist, an architectural designer, or a data scientist who needs a portable workstation that can run CAD software, render 3D scenes, and still handle occasional gaming, this laptop hits a sweet spot. The UHD screen's color accuracy reduces the need for an external monitor when you're on the road, and the Quadro drivers give you stability in professional software that consumer-grade GPUs sometimes lack. The robust build, on-site service options, and Windows 10 Pro licensing also add enterprise-level peace of mind for those who can't afford downtime. Who should walk away?